Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 Howl. Now don't fret, don't be scared of the title. I'm not, gonna advertise sports betting, tell you to do it. Just, I think we all know now that sports gambling advertisements are surrounding the NHL, infesting everything about hockey these days. You got, YouTube vloggers getting sponsored by sports betting. Pretty much 70% of the ads you see around the rink and during commercials are about sports betting. So I thought, you know what? I don't see anyone talking about actually doing it and what they learned by betting on sports, the repercussions, your mental state while you're going through it, how to do it. So I thought, you know what? I gave myself a 10 game limit and said I watched Coyotes hockey pretty much 98% of their games over the past 7 years. So if I know anything in life better, it's the Coyotes. So why not just bet on the Coyotes? So the first thing I want to say is set a limit, set your limits, play within it. Obviously, there's two games here that don't involve the Coyotes. I'll get into that a bit later. But before I jumped in, I set my limits. I mapped it out. I was pretty apprehensive about actually doing it, but I thought I'll make a video out of it. Just have fun with it and we'll see what happens. I won't disclose the dollar amounts, but to be honest, it's not that high. Probably your monthly expense for a coffee. So if you don't drink coffee, I don't know, maybe dessert or ice cream, or maybe cigarettes if some of you still smoke. So it's not high. Don't worry about me financially. It's fine. At the end of it, I'll tell you what happens, but maybe you can tell already what happened. So let's jump into it. My limit was only betting on the Coyotes, not to win or lose, but just betting on a game that involves the Coyotes. So I was feeling really good the first three bets I made. Obviously, the season opener against Pittsburgh, you're on the road. Obviously, Pittsburgh was going to win that one. So it was a pretty easy bet. The way betting works, I set it up in a decimal or percentage system. So when you see 4.0 or 1.25, that's just a multiplier on how much money you put in. So let's say, hypothetically, not saying that's what I put in, but I put in $10. If I bet on Arizona, I would get $40 plus my $10 back, so I'd cash out with 50. If I bet on Pittsburgh, I'd get 25% of $10, which is $2.50. So I'd win $12.50 back, which included my $10 bet. So you know what I'm trying to say. If I bet $10 for Pittsburgh to win, which I did bet Pittsburgh to win, and I did win, I would get back $12.50. Yeah, that was an easy one. I'm not proud. I'm not like some Nostradamus here. Like obviously it was pretty bagged up that Pittsburgh was going to win. Pittsburgh was at home, first game of the season for the Coyotes. Pretty much don't do well against Pittsburgh. It was a good win. Then we move on to Boston. Same thing for me. The Coyotes have the worst history against the Boston Bruins. Pretty sure they haven't won a game against the Bruins or at home against the Bruins in like over 10 years. So this was an easy one too. 1.3 odds in my favor. If Arizona did win, it was 3.8 odds. You can see here that most of the time Arizona has extremely high odds to win these games. But went with Boston, and again, it was another it was a 6-3 win for Boston, I believe. Pittsburgh was 6-2, so I won that one. Feeling good, 2 wins in a row. Then we get to Toronto, which, my history with the Coyotes in Toronto is that when the Coyotes come into Toronto, they put up a big game, a hard game, and sometimes at least have trouble beating the Coyotes at home. When they go to Arizona, at least usually win. So it's a bit weird. To me, I'm like, it's a road game. It's early in the season. Andre Tourigny is going to get these guys working hard. They're going to play the trap, play stingy defense. And I don't think the Leafs are ready in mid-season or late-season form to handle such a defensive team. They kind of just want to get out there, show off, maybe play that high offensive tempo game. So I'm like, if there's a game I'm going to bet for the Coyotes to win, why not this game against Toronto? And the odds, I screwed up because I bet way too early in this game. So I locked it in at 3.90 for the Coyotes to win, but at game time, it was up to 5.1. So I lost I didn't lose money, but the opportunity cost of waiting till game time to bet, I lost out on some really high gains. Obviously, I won this game. Arizona won this game, but let's say I put in $10 and I locked in at that 5.1. I was coming out with like 55, $60. So I only came out with 30 if I bet $10, not saying I did. I only came out with what, $39 there, so missed out on about $15 by just waiting. So I've learned like sports betting isn't like the stock market. I'll get into the Columbus game here. So even a Toronto game, I believe Samsonov just got injured, and then Shalgren was announced to play, and I thought that would bring down Arizona Coyote odds because it's Shalgren. He's like a third, fourth stringer for the Leafs, but no, instead it went even higher odds. So I didn't get it then, and then the Columbus game really cemented how sports betting odds don't surround news like the stock market. Usually in the stock market, once news comes out, that news is reflected in the price, and the stock goes down or goes up. But for sports betting, to me, it seems like it's just based on the number of people who are betting on the teams. And if more people are betting for this team to lose, then their odds will go up or something like that. So the Columbus game, I bet for the Columbus to win, and obviously Columbus lost and Arizona won 6-3 that game. But before that game, it was announced that it was Laine's first game back from injury. I know he's injured again, but back then it was Laine's first game back from injury. And then Columbus also announced that their backup was playing. So, yeah, maybe I should have waited until those news items came to be. But, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here, but, like, if I waited till game time, but even then, Laine coming back from injury should have increased Columbus's odds to win. So I feel like Arizona should have went down, like 2.8. If Laine's coming back from injury, most likely Columbus would win that game. They're at home. It's Arizona's last game on their first 4-game road trip. I just feel like the odds were a bit low. Either for Arizona or for Columbus. I'm getting mixed up with the positives and negatives here. But to me, if it's announced that Laine is coming back from injury, he's a star player, then the Columbus odds to win would have went down. I think this is what I'm trying to say. The odds should have went down, but they didn't. They stayed at 1.48. So what I was trying to say here is compare it to the stock market, where once it's out that Laine is playing, the Columbus odds to win should have went higher. So if that makes sense. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, my first loss of the season didn't feel too bad, but this was the first experience I had where I bet against the Coyotes and the Coyotes won. And we'll see later that happened a couple times, even recently. So watching those types of games where you have money on the Coyotes to lose and they're playing good and starting to win, sort of diminishes that feeling and vibe of winning. And considering the fact that the Coyotes barely win over the past year, I don't want that feeling of winning to be tarnished. So, that's why I only gave myself a 10-game limit. I felt that feeling a lot of times, especially recently, and so I'm trying to get away from that feeling. But that's the first game where I bet for Arizona to lose, but Arizona did win. Then we go to these 2 games not involving the Coyotes, going against my limits. These were free bets given to me, so sometimes these sports books give you like free bets. Both of these were $10 valued bets, so they just give you $10 to bet, and then you keep just the profit. You don't keep the $10 on top of it. So for Minnesota versus Ottawa, the reason why I bet for Ottawa for Minnesota to win, I saw a blurb by, I think, Middleton the night before saying, oh, the locker room's feeling much better. We're coming out of that, beginning of the season where we were losing a lot and down in the dumps, but the locker room is confident and we feel good. So I just based that bet off that statement. So I won $8. So I put in $10. Instead of getting back $18, 1.8 times 10, I only got the profit, so I won $8 from that game. And then the same night, I got another $10 free bet. I bet for Vancouver to beat Seattle, and it was Vancouver's first win of the season. I don't know why I did it. I just had a feeling like Vancouver hasn't won all season. Pretty weird considering the talent they have in their forward core and a great goalie in Demko. I just thought, the odds are pretty good, 2.05. If I win this bet, I get what? You get $12 back, so you don't get the $22 because they keep the free $10. But I figured if I lose, I don't lose anything because the $10 is free. If you lose these free bets, you don't have to pay anything. So I was like, these are the highest odds of the night. If they win, I get like $12 back. So I just went with it. Woke up the next morning, and I won $8 and $12. I made $20 just off these free games. So I most of these games were riding the winnings off the Toronto game because I won a lot there, and these two free games. I think if I lost the Toronto game and lost these two free games, I would have lost a lot of money here. But I was feeling really good. I have 5 wins out of 6. So we go into the home opener for the Coyotes. I was banking on the Coyotes winning this game. I thought this was their most important game of the season so far. Home opener. My goal and expectation for this game was to win, but also if they didn't win, to make it competitive, to make it fun, to get good word of mouth around the city of Tempe. Like, you got to go to this game. You got to see the Coyotes. It's a great atmosphere. They put on a good show. At the end of the day, sports is just entertainment. So I went with Arizona to win this one. I think these are the lowest odds for Arizona to win. So the sports betting and everyone on the app was basically betting more often than not that the Coyotes would win compared to these other games. So I went with it. They even announced that Winnipeg's backup was in it, David Riddick. So I thought it was a no-brainer. And they come out with a 2-0 lead in the first and then kind of just played poorly in the second and third. But it was a competitive enough game. Brought it to overtime. They lose 3-2. Ultimately, I lost the bet. But, that overtime was really exciting. I'm like, oh my God, an overtime win. First, I'll be excited that Coyotes win at home, their first game one at Mullet Arena, and I get to win a lot of money because I bet on them to win. But obviously, it was an unfortunate ending, but a great game to watch. And I thought, you know what, there'll be another chance to win. And their next game against the Rangers, pretty good odds for the Rangers for me. Like, the New York Rangers, like, to me, that's an elite team who they should make the conference finals. They're going to compete for the cup. They're going to buy at the trade deadline. So to see that they had 1.5 odds to win, I thought that was free money. Like, there's no way the Coyotes are beating the New York Rangers. So, again, if you put in $10 for New York to win, you'll get back $15. So you're making 50% on how much you put in. If you put in $100 for this New York Ranger game, you would have got $150 back. Like, that's pretty substantial. It was a close game. I think the game was 3-2. Connor Ingram played an amazing game. I was clenching the whole game, like, oh my God, are the Coyotes going to win this? Because they look pretty good against the Rangers, but ultimately the Rangers won. I feel good. And then it starts to crumble a little bit. We go to the Florida game where, I was like, this is Florida. This is an elite team. No way the Coyotes are beating Florida this early in the season. Again, you got to think about, like, in hindsight, yes, it makes sense. The Coyotes may won these games. I'll get to these games here, but think about last year. They didn't win for their first 12 games. So to me, I'm coming off of that historical data. They're facing elite teams like the Rangers and Florida, and then we get here to the Islanders and the Devils. It's like Coyotes should be losing these games, and it's like free money for me. But again, somehow they beat Florida 3-1. I lose money there. Wouldn't have won too much money. It wasn't the lowest. I think the lowest is Pittsburgh at 1.25 for the lowest odds to win. But they beat Florida, surprised everyone. Vejmelka had a great game. I think Florida had over 40 shots, over 80 shot attempts. So it was a rough one for me. Surprised they won. Again, it diminished that feeling of the Coyotes winning. So it was an unfortunate feeling to have. And then we go to Dallas. I was so mad about that Florida losing that game and losing that bet. I'm like, Dallas is winning this one for sure. And immediately it was obvious. Coyotes were down 4-0 in the first period. I walked away feeling good the rest of the game, but obviously Coyotes played a poor game. So again, you have mixed feelings coming in here, and as someone who comments on Coyotes games, you're kind of fighting yourself. It's like, thank God I won this bet, but at the same time, it played terribly, going down 4-0 early. You got to look at the trends because they lost a lot over here, Pittsburgh, Boston. I didn't bet on the Montreal and Ottawa game. Obviously, I skipped some games because after that Arizona win over Toronto, I like shut off the app. Didn't want to look at it for a couple days. I'm like, I'll wait. Just felt too good. Didn't want to lose those profits right away. But with this loss, where I bet for Florida to win and they lost, I wanted to bet right away. I was like, I need that money back. It was such an anomaly that the Coyotes beat the Florida Panthers. So I immediately was like betting Dallas to win, Dallas to win. So if Dallas lost that game and Arizona won, I like probably my mental health would have been down in the dumps. But thankfully Dallas won, and then they go back on the road. So I didn't bet the Washington game, their first game on the road, because they just got blown out by Dallas. So I was like, I don't know how Arizona's going to respond after getting blown out at home and then going on a road trip. If I were to bet, I would have bet Washington to win that game. Obviously, you have Darcy Kemper. You can't count out Ovechkin, but I know Washington's going through a lot of injuries at the same time. So I was like, I don't know. My gut would have said to bet Washington. Ultimately, the Coyotes won that game. So I'm like, okay, thank God I didn't bet on that game. I would have lost. But now they go to Buffalo. There's no way the Coyotes are winning back-to-back games on a 14-game road trip. Um, yeah, it just seemed unheard of that the Coyotes would win against Washington and then immediately win against the Sabres, who the Sabres were starting off really good, and then they're kind of coming back down to earth, which seems like it happens almost every season. But I thought the odds were pretty good. 1.48. Buffalo's at home. They got some really good talent. I was seeing highlights of Tage Thompson, and that kind of got me like, oh my God, Buffalo's going to run away with this game. Tage Thompson's going to light it up against the Coyotes. So, okay, Buffalo's winning this game. No way Coyotes are winning back-to-back on the road. And then Arizona wins. They beat Buffalo. So I'm like, okay, they won against Washington, won against Buffalo. They're going into the New York Islanders, who, the Islanders are playing really well this season, well coached, great goaltending in Sorokin. There's absolutely no way the Coyotes are winning 3 games in a row on the road. Like, there's absolutely no way. Like, I didn't bet too much on this game. I bet the same amount in every game, but I honestly, there's some part of me saying I should go like all in on this game. Like, absolutely, like being such a Coyotes fan, watching so many games. It's early in the season. Last year was the worst start in like Coyotes history, next to the first year for Rick Tocchet. 3 wins, it's unheard of. Like, even saying it now that the Coyotes won 3 games in a row on the road in the beginning of the season to start a 14-game road trip, it's just, it doesn't seem real, but it happened. Coyotes beat the Islanders. I lost that bet, so I was on a pretty big losing streak. Losing 3 bets out of 4, and my profits were dwindling down. I think I went below my break-even point, and then I brought it back up finally with the Devils win. I didn't do any analysis in this game, which is a reason why I'm not betting anymore, because against the Devils, it was a weekend game. I'm not that active to know what the other teams are doing on the weekend. I don't know who's playing. I don't know lineup changes. I don't know the storylines. When I was watching this game live, I didn't know the Devils were on a 8-game win streak. I didn't know they were playing this guy, a rookie goaltender who only had 1 NHL game to his name. So once I started watching that game, and then the commentators Matt McConnell and Tyson Nash were like, yeah, Devils are on an 8-game winning streak. They got this rookie goaltender who's barely played any NHL minutes. My heart sank. I'm like, I shouldn't have made this bet. I should have known all this before making this bet. And the Coyotes played so well that game, and then unfortunately for non-sports betting reasons, the Coyotes let the game get, away from them. It was a competitive game. They ultimately lose that game 4-2. But that's when I stopped. I'm like, you know what? I should have known that the Devils were on an 8-game winning streak. I should have known they were playing such a rookie goaltender and noob goaltender. So I was like, thank God this is my last game to bet. I broke even with this win. So at the end of this whole experiment, I did break even. But if I were to go back into sports betting, I would keep the limit. I would say, you know what, only bet Coyotes games. I got lucky with these two free games, but you never know. You should only bet once you know exactly who's playing. You should only bet maybe an hour or two right before the game. Don't bet in the morning of the game or the day before because things happen in practice or warm ups, even. Like I said here, Columbus announced their backup. Columbus announced Line was back in the lineup. You should make bets knowing all the variables are in place. Sure, you could probably catch, maybe someone gets injured in warm-ups and then the odds go up or the odds go down for a team to win and you catch that early to bet on a higher odds. But to be honest, even in this Toronto game, I should have bet an hour before the game when the odds went up to 5.1. I shouldn't have bet early in the morning where it was at 3.9. So again, I wasn't really happy with myself near the end here. It started off really fun and really good, but that feeling that I mentioned before, the mixed feelings of seeing the Coyotes win, but you bet them to lose, just it didn't mesh well. Maybe in some of my videos I wasn't as ecstatic as I wish I was that the Coyotes won these games because in the back of my mind I'm like, oh, I lost money because this team won those games. But thankfully I broke even. Like I said, if I were going to go back, I'm not going to bet on weekend games because I'm not as active on social media. I'm not checking the other team's lineups. I'm not checking their writers to see who's drawing in the lineup, who's on a cold streak, who's on a hot streak. So I'll probably take a big break from this. Maybe in the new year I'll start it up again. Um, if I lost everything, obviously nothing would have happened. It was a small amount enough to not really make a huge impact. I already was when I was going into this experiment. I was saying if I lose this money, I'm okay with it. So you should have that in the back of your mind too. That's another limit where if you start betting, just say to yourself, what happens if I lose everything? Am I in a good spot? Does it really matter? Is a small amount enough where it's just a nice dinner out somewhere? So you should have that limit as well. But I'm taking a break. I just want to get back to enjoying hockey. I don't want to have that feeling of hoping the Coyotes lose or hoping they win when I bet they lost or something like that. I just want to get back to just watching hockey, no other variables. I know this other thing, this other elephant in the room is a tank. So there was like a three-pronged effect. You have the tank where you want to lose. You have the sports betting where you bet Arizona to lose and they're winning. And then you have, I just want to watch good hockey and it's really fun when the Coyotes win. So it's like a three-pronged effect. And maybe it's a bit much. Just want to get back to just watching hockey. None of that in the back of my mind. Just see how it plays out. Maybe some trades happen. I'm thinking like in the new year, maybe the trade deadline, if the Coyotes sell off a lot of players, maybe they struggle a bit after the trade deadline like they did last year where they sold off a bunch of guys. Maybe, hopefully not, if a player gets injured, like I know that Keller injury last season was really big for the team, so I really don't want it to happen, but I'm saying if it does, then I know the Coyotes usually struggle when they lose a really important player in those first couple games, so maybe, there's opportunities there, but I think for me, I just don't really want to touch it again. Maybe in the next couple of seasons when the Coyotes are actually good and competitive night in and night out, and I like it when they win, and I would bet more than that they win because in these 10 or 11 bets, I only bet the Coyotes to win twice. So against Toronto, I won, and then I bet for them to beat Winnipeg in their home opener, and I lost. So I rarely bet that the Coyotes will win, but Maybe in the future when they're a really good team, it's a better feeling that I bet for the Coyotes to win and they also win at the same time. Maybe that will increase the excitement and my mojo and morale and passion even more. So we'll see. I'm not writing it off completely, but I want to do take a big break from it. I wanted to do this experiment, so I'm telling you, if you're interested in joining or you thought, I wonder how it is with sports betting. I watch so much hockey. Should I get into it? And that no one's really telling you the consequences and the feelings and emotions involved. That was the point of this video, to be an open book, tell you exactly what I went through in each of these games, my feelings, my mixed feelings, what happens when you bet for your favorite team to lose but they actually win, what happens when you bet your favorite team to win and they actually lose. So it's complicated. It's a bit too many emotions going on around the same time with your favorite team. Maybe you don't even bet on your favorite team. Maybe just stay away from your favorite team and just bet on another team and wake up the next morning and see if you win. I mean, I did that twice and I won both. So maybe that's a better way to handle it. Just bet games based on gut. You don't know anything. You like the odds. You like what the scenario involved and you just go for it. So bit of a long video. I kind of wandered off in that Columbus game, but it's so hard to talk about like, oh, increased odds is actually the negative or lower odds is positive and the numbers increase or decrease. It's hard to really explain that fluidly, but hopefully I got everything across. And yeah, if you saw in my videos recently that I wasn't like so ecstatic or so passionate about some of these Coyotes wins, I think some of those videos I was laughing and couldn't believe it and was in disbelief. This is why, because I bet for them to lose and they actually did end up winning. So that's it for me. It's a long video, but thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.